Admiral Jake Morrison stood in front of the big screen that showed the whole galaxy. He watched as another alien ship turned around at the edge of human space. The ship looked like a silver bird with long wings that glowed blue. It had traveled for months to get here, but now it was flying away, without even trying to cross the invisible line that marked where human territory began. Sir the Zephyrian. Ambassador wants to know why they cannot come into our space, said Lieutenant Amy Parker from her seat at the control panel. Her voice was careful and polite, but Jake could hear the confusion in it. Amy was young and had only been working on the UES Defiance for 2 years. She did not understand why humans kept everyone else away. Jake looked at the alien ship one more time before it disappeared into the darkness between stars. His face showed nothing, but his eyes were tired. He had been giving the same answer for 20 years, and each time it felt heavier. Tell them what we always tell everyone. No species enters human space. No exceptions. Amy turned around in her chair to look at him. Her brown eyes were full of questions she wanted to ask, but knew she should not. But sir, they are offering us a trade deal worth billions of credits. They have medical technology that could help sick people on Earth. They say they can cure diseases we have never been able to fix. Jake walked closer to her station. The bridge around them was quiet except for the soft humming of computers. Other crew members pretended to work, but he knew they were listening. This conversation happened at least once a month, and everyone always hoped the answer would change. Lieutenant Parker, he said in a voice that made it clear the discussion was over. There are things worth more than money or new machines. Sometimes the best thing you can do for other people is to stay far away from them. Amy wanted to argue, but she could see in his face that he meant what he said. She turned back to her controls and sent the message to the alien ship. Jake watched her type the words that would send another hopeful species back to their home with empty hands. Down in the observation room, Dr. Lisa Chen stood by the huge window that looked out into space. She was one of the few people left who knew the real story about why humans lived alone. Most people thought it was because humans were proud or because they thought they were better than other species. The truth was much worse. Lisa looked at the wall behind her that was covered with names. Millions and millions of names written in small letters that covered every inch of space from floor to ceiling. Most people who walked past this wall thought these were the names of human heroes who died in wars. They were wrong. Every single name on this wall belonged to an alien who had died because of what humans did long ago. The wall was called the Memorial of the Lost, but Lisa knew a better name for it. She called it the Wall of Shame. Each name represented a life that was cut short during what the history books called the expansion period. But people like Lisa, who had studied the real records, knew the true name for that time. They called it the Burning. Lisa touched one of the names with her finger. It belonged to a Kalari child who had lived on a planet that humans destroyed 300 years ago. The child had been 7 years old and loved to paint pictures of flowers. Lisa knew this because she had read the personal files that survived the war. She knew about thousands of aliens who had families and dreams and hopes before humans came and took everything away. The alien ship was now just a tiny dot of light getting smaller and smaller. Soon it would be gone completely, and the Zephyrians would go back to their people and tell them that humans still refused to talk to anyone. They would add this story to the hundreds of other stories about humans saying no to friendship. Jake came down to the observation room and stood next to Lisa. They did not speak for a long time. Both of them were thinking about the same thing. How long could humans keep this up? How long could they stay alone in their corner of the galaxy? They brought gifts, Lisa said finally. The Zephyrians had art and music and stories they wanted to share. Their message said they have been dreaming of meeting humans for 50 years. Jake nodded. He had read the message too. It was full of excitement and hope. The Zephyrians had spent decades preparing for this moment. They had learned human languages and studied human culture. They thought humans would be happy to meet them. I know, he said. But you know what happened the last time aliens got excited about meeting us. Lisa looked back at the wall of names. She did know. She had spent her whole life studying what happened when humans first went out into the galaxy. It was her job to make sure people remembered, even though most people did not want to think about it. The galaxy has forgotten, she said. They think we stay away because we are mean or because we think we are too good for them. They do not know we stay away because we are dangerous. Good, Jake said. Let them think we are just unfriendly. It is better than them knowing what we really are. On the bridge, Amy was finishing her report about the Zephyrian ship. She wrote that the aliens had followed all the rules and stayed outside human space. She wrote that they had been polite and respectful. She did not write about how sad their final message had sounded when they realized humans would not change their minds. The next day there would be another alien ship at the border. Maybe it would be the Keth who wanted to share their farming techniques. Maybe it would be the dolphins who had questions about Earth oceans. Maybe it would be some new species that had just learned how to travel between stars and wanted to say hello to their neighbors. It did not matter who came or what they wanted. The answer would always be the same. No species enters human space. Not because humans hated aliens. Not because humans thought they were better. But because 300 years ago humans had learned something terrible about themselves and they never wanted to let that monster out again. Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon and watched history being made. On the main screen was a ship unlike anything humans had ever seen. It looked like a giant flower made of crystal and light. The ship belonged to the Kalari Federation, and it was the first alien vessel that humans had ever met in space. "Sir, they are sending us a message," said Dr. Kevin Ross from his station. Kevin was the science officer and his hands were shaking with excitement. For his whole life he had wondered if humans were alone in the universe. Now he knew they were not. Alex smiled as he listened to the beautiful music that came from the alien ship. Even though he could not understand the words, he could tell it was a greeting song. The sounds were gentle and happy, like wind chimes in a summer breeze. "Send back our own greeting," he told his communications officer. "Let them know we come in peace." The first meeting between humans and the Kalari took place on a small moon between their two territories. Alex wore his best uniform and brought gifts from Earth. Books of poetry, art, and music that showed the best of human culture. The Kalari delegation arrived in robes that changed colors as they moved. Their leader was tall and thin with 4 arms and skin that glowed softly like moonlight. "We are honored to meet the children of Earth," the Kalari leader said through a translation device. "We have watched your species from far away and we are excited to welcome you into the galactic community." Alex felt proud and humble at the same time. After so many years of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they had finally found friends among the stars. The Kalari gave humans 2 gifts that day. The first was a translation matrix that would let humans talk to any species in the galaxy. The second was an invitation to join the Galactic Council, where all the smart species work together to solve problems and share knowledge. This is the beginning of a new age for humanity, Alex told his crew when they returned to the ship. "We are not alone anymore and we never will be again." Within 3 months, human ships were traveling to dozens of different worlds. They met the wise elders who had been alive for thousands of years and knew secrets about the universe that humans could not imagine. They met the builders who could create cities in space that looked like gardens full of impossible flowers. They met the singers whose voices could heal sick minds and broken hearts. Each new species taught humans something different. The Kalari shared their art and philosophy. The hegemony showed humans how to build better engines for their ships. The crystal mines taught humans mathematics that made their computers faster and smarter. It seemed like every day brought new wonders and new friendships, but not everyone was happy about humans joining the galactic community. Alex started to notice problems during the council meetings. When humans suggested new colonies, other species would vote against them. When humans wanted to trade for advanced technology, the prices kept getting higher and higher. When human ships asked for permission to visit certain star systems, they were told those areas were restricted. "They are afraid of us," said Commander Rachel Stone, who had become humanity's first ambassador to the council. Rachel was smart and good at reading people even when those people were aliens with completely different faces and bodies. She had spent months learning about galactic politics and what she found worried her. "Afraid of what?" Alex asked during one of their private meetings. "We have been nothing but friendly. We follow all their rules and we try to help whenever we can." Rachel pulled up charts and graphs that showed how different species voted on issues involving humans. The pattern was clear and frightening. Almost every species in the galaxy was working together to limit human growth and power. "They say we expand too fast," she explained. "They say we ask too many questions and want to change things too quickly. They think we are dangerous." Alex looked at the data and felt confused and angry. Humans had dreamed of joining a galactic community where everyone worked together. Instead, they found themselves being treated like a disease that needed to be contained. "What do they want us to do?" he asked. "Stop exploring, stop learning, just sit in our corner of space and be quiet." "That is exactly what they want," Rachel said. "They have been watching us for years before we met them. They saw how humans fight wars on Earth. They saw how we treat our environment and each other. They decided we are too violent and too aggressive to be trusted with advanced technology or access to the whole galaxy. The restrictions started small. Human ships had to get special permits to travel to certain areas. Human colonies could only be built in star systems that other species did not want. Human traders had to pay extra taxes and follow rules that did not apply to anyone else. Every month brought new limitations and new insults. Alex tried to understand the alien point of view. Humans did have a violent history, and they did tend to solve problems with force rather than patience. But that was changing. Humans were learning to be better, and they deserved a chance to prove themselves. The galaxy was being unfair and cruel to judge them only by their worst moments. The breaking point came when a human freighter carrying medical supplies to a new colony was stopped by Kalari patrol ships. The captain had all the right papers and was following all the rules, but the Kalari said he was in restricted space. When the human captain argued, they opened fire without warning. Alex got the news 3 days later. The freighter UES Mercy had been destroyed with all hands. 26 humans dead, including a medical team that was going to help sick children on a frontier world. The Kalari said it was an accident, but their official report blamed the human captain for being aggressive and threatening. They killed them, Alex said as he read the report in his quarters. His hands were shaking, but not with excitement this time. They murdered innocent people, and they are calling it our fault. Rachel tried to find a peaceful solution. She filed protests with the council and demanded justice for the dead humans. The response was a vote to create even more restrictions on human movement. 17 species voted yes. Only 3 voted no. The message was clear. The galaxy did not want humans as equals. They wanted humans as prisoners in their own small corner of space. If they want to see us as monsters, Alex told his crew, then maybe it is time to show them what real monsters can do. The war started 3 days after the UES Mercy was destroyed. Colonel Sam Bennett received his orders while he was eating breakfast in the mess hall of the military station orbiting Mars. The message was short and simple. Prepare for immediate deployment. Target Kalari space. Mission: show them what happens when you kill humans. Sam had been a soldier for 15 years, but he had never fought aliens before. Nobody had. All of his training was based on fighting other humans who thought and moved and planned like humans did. But the Kalari were different. They were taller and had 4 arms and could see colors that humans could not even imagine. Their ships were faster and their weapons were more advanced. None of that mattered to Sam. He had learned a long time ago that winning fights was not about having better equipment. It was about being willing to do whatever it took to make the enemy stop fighting. And humans were very good at doing whatever it took. Listen up, Sam told his soldiers as they prepared for the first assault on Kalari Prime. These aliens think they know about war because they have fancy ships and energy weapons. They think they can kill our people and we will just accept it like good little pets. They are about to learn something about humans that they should have learned before they started this fight. The landing on Kalari Prime was not like the movies that showed space. Battles with heroic charges and dramatic speeches. It was brutal and efficient and over faster than anyone expected. Sam's forces used tactics that had worked on Earth for thousands of years. They cut off supply lines and communications. They attacked civilian targets to break enemy morale. They took hostages and used them as human shields. The Kalari had never seen anything like it. Their own military was designed for clean battles between professional soldiers who followed rules and treated prisoners with respect. They were not prepared for humans who fought like wild animals with the intelligence of strategic planners. They do not fight with honor. The Kalari commander sent in his final transmission before his base was overrun. They attack hospitals and schools. They kill civilians and use their own wounded as bait for traps. What kind of species creates soldiers like this? Sam read the message and felt nothing. Honor was a luxury for species that could afford to lose. Humans could not afford to lose, so they fought without honor, without mercy, and without limits. The Kalari surrendered after 6 days when Sam's forces surrounded their capital city and threatened to destroy it completely unless the entire species gave up. But the galaxy did not learn from the Kalari example. The hegemony of 7 worlds decided that humans had just been lucky against one weak species. They formed an alliance with 12 other species and declared war on humanity, with the largest space fleet that had ever been assembled. Captain Nicole Davis commanded a single human destroyer called the UES Reaper when she met the alien fleet at the edge of human space. Her ship was outnumbered 300 to 1. The aliens sent her a message demanding surrender and promising that humans would be treated fairly if they gave up without a fight. Nicole sent back a message of her own. It was just 2 words. Try me. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the entire alien fleet was floating dead in space and the UES Reaper was still moving. Nicole had used tactics that violated every rule of space combat that civilized species followed. She had used her own ship as a missile ramming enemy vessels, and then teleporting her crew to safety at the last second. She had pretended to surrender and then activated hidden bombs when the enemy ships came close to accept her defeat. How is this possible? Asked the surviving alien commander, as his ship drifted powerless through the wreckage of his fleet. We had better ships, better weapons, more soldiers. How did one human destroy everything? Nicole answered him over the radio while her crew prepared to finish off the remaining alien ships. You fought like you were playing a game with rules that everyone had to follow. We fought like our species was going to die if we lost. That is the difference between your people and mine. The news of the hegemony's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had never heard of humans before started learning about the small, violent race that could destroy entire fleets with single ships. Some species tried to make peace with humans before the war reached their space. Others formed larger and larger alliances, hoping that sheer numbers would be enough to stop the human advance. Nothing worked. Every species that fought humans discovered the same terrible truth. Humans did not fight wars to win territory or resources or glory. They fought wars to make sure their enemies could never threaten them again, and they were very good at it. General Mike Crawford led the assault on the Trilax Consortium after they made the mistake of attacking a human research station. The Trilax were known across the galaxy as master strategists who had never lost a war. They had studied human tactics and prepared countermeasures for every known human strategy. They had not prepared for humans who were willing to sacrifice entire fleets to destroy single enemy targets. They had not prepared for human soldiers who would rather die than retreat. They had not prepared for a species that saw war not as politics or economics but as pure survival. They fight like demons, reported the Trilax Supreme Commander after human forces had taken half of his territory in 2 weeks. Every human soldier fights like their children will die if they lose this single battle. Every human ship attacks like it is the last ship humanity has. How do you defeat an enemy that thinks losing means extinction? The answer was simple. You did not defeat that kind of enemy. You either destroyed them completely or you ran away and hoped they would not follow you. More and more species chose to run. By the end of the 3rd year of the war, 18 alien species had been completely wiped out. Their planets were empty. Their ships were scrap metal floating in space. Their cultures and languages and art were lost forever. The humans, who had once wanted nothing more than to make friends among the stars, had become something that scared even themselves. Sam stood on the bridge of a captured alien battleship and looked at reports from across the galaxy. Every week brought news of another species surrendering or fleeing their homeworlds rather than face human forces. The galaxy that had once seemed so vast and full of wonders was becoming a graveyard. Sir, said one of his officers, we have confirmed reports that the Eternal Collective is preparing to surrender. They are offering to give us complete control of their territory, if we promise not to attack their civilian populations. Sam nodded and marked another species off his list. Soon there would be no one left to fight. Humanity would rule the galaxy, not because they had wanted to, but because everyone else had been too afraid to let them live in peace. President Mary Collins walked through the empty halls where the Galactic Council used to meet. Her footsteps echoed in the silence that had replaced the sounds of dozens of different species working together. The great chamber that had once been filled with alien delegates from across the galaxy was now just a museum of what used to be. Madam President, said General Tony Wright as he approached her with his daily report, the last resistance group on Terminus Base has been eliminated. Our forces report no remaining organized opposition anywhere in the galaxy. Mary stopped walking and looked at the empty seats where alien ambassadors used to sit. Each seat was designed for a different species. Some were tall and thin for the tree-like Verdani. Some were low and wide for the rock creatures called the Eternal Builders. Some had special air systems for species that breathed different gases than humans did. Now they were all empty and covered with dust. What does that mean exactly? Mary asked. When you say no remaining organized opposition? Tony looked uncomfortable. He was a good soldier who had followed orders and won battles, but he was starting to understand what victory really meant. It means there is no alien government anywhere that can challenge human authority. Most species have either been destroyed or scattered to small groups hiding on remote planets. The galaxy is under complete human control. Mary felt sick. This was not what she had wanted when the war started. Nobody had wanted this. Humans had just wanted to be left alone to build their colonies and trade with friendly species. Instead, they had become the rulers of a galaxy full of graves and empty worlds. She walked to the center of the chamber, where a holographic display used to show the locations of all member species. Now it showed a map painted almost entirely in human blue. Here and there were tiny red dots that marked refugee camps where the survivors of destroyed civilizations tried to rebuild their lives. The dots were so small compared to the vast blue areas that they looked like drops of blood on a clean white sheet. "How many?" Mary asked quietly. "Madam President," Tony said. "How many species are gone?" Mary said more clearly. "I want exact numbers." Tony pulled out his datapad and read from it in a voice that got quieter as he went on. 43 species have been classified as extinct. This includes the complete destruction of their homeworlds and all known colonies. An additional 71 species have been reduced to populations of less than 1 million individuals, scattered across refugee settlements. 18 species surrendered completely and have been relocated to designated preservation worlds under human protection. Mary did the math in her head. That was 132 species that had been killed, scattered, or imprisoned because humans had decided they were threats. 132 unique cultures with their own languages and art and ways of understanding the universe. All gone or dying because humans were afraid. And our own people? Mary asked. Total human military casualties for the 7-year conflict were approximately 2 million dead and 4 million wounded. Civilian casualties were minimal due to our rapid control of alien territory. 2 million humans dead. Mary thought about that number and tried to make it feel real. 2 million families who had lost fathers and mothers and children. 2 million empty chairs at dinner tables back on Earth. But then she thought about the alien casualties, and 2 million seemed like a small number. "Sir, we have received another surrender request," said a communications officer who had been listening from across the room. "The Harmony Coalition is offering complete submission if we allow them to keep their sacred breeding grounds on Kepler 7. Mary closed her eyes. The Harmony Coalition was one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. They had been exploring space when humans were still living in caves. Their art was famous across 1,000 worlds, and their philosophy had influenced dozens of other species. Now they were begging humans to let them keep one small planet where their children were born. "Tell them yes," Mary said. "Give them their breeding grounds and leave them alone." Tony looked surprised. "Madam President, our standing orders are to accept only unconditional surrender. No exceptions and no special deals." "I am changing those orders," Mary said firmly. "Send word to all our military commanders. Any species that wants to surrender can keep one world for their civilians. Any species that wants to leave the galaxy completely can go. Any species that just wants to be left alone will be left alone." "But Madam President," Tony argued, "our security experts say that showing mercy now could be seen as weakness. These species might rebuild and attack us again in the future." Mary turned to face him, and Tony could see tears in her eyes. "General Wright, do you have children?" "Yes, Madam President. 2 daughters." "What kind of galaxy do you want them to grow up in?" Mary asked. "One where humans rule through fear and violence, or one where humans are remembered as the species that chose mercy when they had the power to destroy everything?" Tony thought about his daughters playing in the parks on Earth. He thought about them learning about the war in school and asking him what he had done during the fighting. He thought about having to explain why so many alien species were extinct and what role he had played in making that happen. "I understand, Madam President," he said quietly. That night Mary stood on the observation deck of her ship and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human soldiers were setting up bases on worlds that used to belong to alien families. Somewhere out there, alien children were learning that their parents' species was dead and that humans had killed them. Somewhere out there, the survivors of 100 civilizations were trying to figure out how to rebuild their lives in a galaxy ruled by the species that had destroyed everything they loved. Dr. Peter Hayes joined her at the window. Peter had been documenting the war since it started, and his job was to make sure humans remembered what they had done. The construction crews have finished the memorial on Kalari Prime, he reported. It will have room for 5 billion names to start with, but we can expand it if needed. If needed, Mary repeated. You mean when we find more bodies? Yes, Madam President. The search and rescue teams are still finding mass graves on worlds we conquered years ago. Most alien species kept detailed records of their populations, so we should be able to get accurate casualty numbers. Eventually, Mary put her hand on the cold window and watched a human patrol ship fly past in the distance. What have we become, Peter? She whispered. Peter had been asking himself the same question for months. We became what we had to become to survive. The question now is whether we can become something better. We have to, Mary said. We have to prove that humans can be more than just killers. We have to prove that winning a war does not mean we have to keep fighting forever. The next morning, President Collins signed the order that would change human history. All human military forces would withdraw from conquered alien territory within 6 months. All surviving alien species would be relocated to protected worlds where they could rebuild their civilizations. And most important of all, no alien species would ever be allowed to enter human space again. We are leaving the galaxy, she announced to the human people, not because we are defeated, but because we have learned something terrible about ourselves. When we feel threatened, we become monsters. The only way to make sure that never happens again is to make sure we are never threatened again. Admiral Jake Morrison walked across the surface of Memorial Moon, where billions of names covered every inch of the ground beneath his feet. The names were carved so small that you needed special glasses to read them, but Jake knew many of them by heart. He had been coming here every day for 20 years, and each visit reminded him why humans had to stay alone in their corner of the galaxy. 300 years had passed since President Collins ordered humanity to withdraw from the conquered alien worlds. 300 years since humans had voluntarily given up control of the galaxy and locked themselves away from all other species. Most humans alive today had never seen an alien and never would. They lived their entire lives inside human space and died without knowing what they were being protected from. Admiral called Dr. Lisa Chen as she approached him carrying her daily report. Lisa was the chief historian of human isolation, and her job was to make sure that humans never forgot why they had to stay away from the rest of the galaxy. The Zephyrians sent another message today. They want to establish a research station just outside our border. They say they want to study human culture and learn from us. Jake stopped walking and looked at the name he was standing on. It belonged to a Zephyrian poet who had lived 400 years ago before humans came to the galaxy. The poet had written beautiful songs about the colors of her homeworld's twin suns. She had been killed when human forces destroyed her city during the 3rd year of the war. Her poems were lost when her people's libraries were burned. What did you tell them? Jake asked. The same thing we always tell everyone. No species enters human space. No exceptions. Lisa paused and looked around at the memorial that stretched beyond the horizon in every direction. But Admiral, I have been thinking. 300 years is a very long time. The current generation of humans never fought in the burning. Maybe it is time to consider changing our policy. Maybe we could allow limited contact or trade agreements. Jake turned to look at her with eyes that had seen too much. Dr. Chen, how many species exist in the galaxy today according to our latest survey? Lisa knew the answer, but saying it always made her feel sad. Approximately 2,000 species, sir. And how many species existed before humanity joined the galactic community? 2,043 species, sir, Lisa said in a voice that got quieter with each word. Jake gestured to the memorial around them. Every name carved into the moon's surface represented a life that had been cut short because humans had felt threatened and responded the only way they knew how. Those 43 species represented billions of years of evolution, Dr. Chen. Countless works of art and music and literature that we will never see. Entire ways of thinking about the universe that are gone forever. They are extinct because humans could not control themselves when we felt afraid. Lisa understood the logic, but the weight of isolation pressed down on her like a heavy blanket. Every day she received messages from alien species who wanted to make contact with humans. They offered friendship and trade and knowledge. They spoke about humans with wonder and curiosity. They had no idea that humans staying away from them was an act of mercy. How long, Admiral, Lisa asked. How long do we have to carry this burden? How long do we have to punish ourselves for what our ancestors did? Jake looked out at the stars that were visible through the moon's thin atmosphere. Out there in the darkness, human families lived on colony worlds that most aliens had never heard of. Human children played games and went to school and dreamed about the future, without knowing that their species was capable of destroying entire civilizations when threatened. Until we are certain, Dr. Chen, until we are absolutely certain that the species that burned the galaxy can never do it again. A young officer approached them and saluted. Admiral Morrison, sir, we have detected another alien ship approaching the border. It appears to be a diplomatic vessel from the Eternal Harmony. They are requesting permission to deliver a gift to commemorate the 300th anniversary of human isolation. Jake sighed. The Eternal Harmony was one of the species that had survived the burning. They had been relocated to a small cluster of worlds far from human space where they had slowly rebuilt their civilization. Unlike most species, they seemed to understand why humans stayed isolated, and they respected the decision even though they were sad about it. What kind of gift? Jake asked. The officer checked his datapad. It appears to be a memorial statue, sir. The message says it is intended to honor both the aliens who died during the war and the humans who chose exile to prevent future wars. They want to place it at the edge of our territory as a symbol of forgiveness and understanding. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. After 300 years of isolation and guilt, an alien species was offering forgiveness for what humans had done. It was more than humans deserved and more kindness than they had any right to expect. Tell them we appreciate the gesture, Jake said slowly. But we cannot accept gifts or allow any ships to approach our territory. Tell them that the greatest gift they can give us is to stay safe and far away. As the alien ship turned around and began the long journey back to its home, Jake thought about the children living on human worlds. They were growing up in a galaxy where their species was the most powerful force that had ever existed, but they would never be allowed to use that power. They would live their entire lives carrying the burden of their ancestors' choices. On distant worlds, the descendants of the species that had survived the burning told stories about the mysterious humans who had conquered the galaxy and then disappeared into their own space. Some stories said humans were monsters who would return someday to finish what they started. Other stories said humans were noble guardians who had sacrificed their freedom to protect everyone else. Both stories were true in their own way. Humans were monsters when they felt threatened, but they were also capable of choosing isolation over violence when they understood the cost of their actions. The galaxy was safer with humans locked away in their corner of space, and humans were safer away from the temptations and fears that came with contact with other species. The memorial flame flickered in the artificial atmosphere as Jake and Lisa walked back toward their transport. Tomorrow there would be another alien ship at the border, and the day after that another one. Each ship would carry beings who were curious about humans and wanted to make contact. Each ship would leave disappointed but alive. That was the price of peace. Humans had learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose not to use your strength. Sometimes the greatest victory is walking away from the fight. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your neighbors is to stay as far away from them as possible. The stars continued to shine in the darkness above Memorial Moon, where billions of names bore witness to what happens when monsters try to make friends. The names would remain there forever as a reminder that some mistakes are too terrible to ever risk making again.